Fact and fiction. In our currently politically charged environment, it's difficult to find where the fiction ends and the truth begins. In the case of Yellowstone National Park, that's pretty much the status quo. For almost 15 years now, there's been a constant battle over winter access to the most famous park in America, with hard-line claims and practical science mingling together into a confusing mishmash. Basically, it comes down to snowmobiles. Do they damage the park, scare the animals, pollute, or any number of other concerns? The fight has progressed to the courts in both Washington, D.C. and Wyoming as they battle over jurisdiction, practically emptying the winter streets of West Yellowstone, streets that once teemed with visitors wanting to experience a frosted look at an amazing environment. Over the years, the rules have become more restrictive, with a never-ending parade of shifting arguments. But this year, something is different.
The Park Service, after they were litigated in both Washington, D.C. and in Cheyenne, came to the conclusion that their fourth environmental impact statement was remanded to them for further study, and in fact they were directed to start over and let's get it right this time, and that's what they started on the 1st of February 2010 and will complete for the 2011 and 12 season.
Currently we're in the scoping process until March 30th, and people have the opportunity of writing in what they would like to see happen and discussed as an alternative during the next EIS.
It's the best time for an individual to make their voice heard. It's kind of a technical term, scoping. It's the early part of a planning process, and it's where the individual's voice can make the most difference in the plan.
The battle began with a push from organizations like the Blue Water Network and the Fund for Animals to close off the park to snowmobiles completely, or at least replace them with much larger snow coaches. Over the years, each of the initial complaints against snowmobiles in Yellowstone was either rectified or discovered to be completely unfounded. Guided tours became the norm, further decreasing the potential for damage. Despite the environmental studies showing snowmobiles have very little impact on park resources, more restrictions continue to pile up. Public perception was that the park was closed in the winter. This had an enormous impact on towns like West Yellowstone. Now, with a light at the end of this long tunnel, several different solutions are being put forward to allow more of the public to access the park during the winter.
What I'm proposing, and others too, is that we get back to a reasonable number. And I'd like to say 490, 500 in that area per day with a flexible cap, so that maybe 20 days there would be an additional percentage that could go in during the holiday times. And then there would be a like percentage that would be decreased for those same numbers of days. And then the balance would be at the regular static level. My preference would be to have what we call a non-commercial guide, so that in fact you could go online and become certified to take your family into the park, sign on the dotted line that you're responsible.
One of the suggested alternatives is to plow the road.
It is a national park. It's not a wilderness. It's accessible. There's no reason in the world not to plow the park. And in my opinion, they should plow the park. They could plow the park, and it would be less expensive than the grooming of the park. For example, the snow coaches get 1 to 4 miles a gallon with the big tracks on it. It's not an efficient way of doing it. And then grooming the road systems is inefficient when you could plow it like the rest of the state does. The reason I am in favor of that is because it gives everybody an equal playing field.
For men like Bill Oldroyd, that equality will mean more people will be able to enter the park during the winter. While the scoping period is rapidly closing on March 30th, there is still time to make comments, no matter what side of the argument you find yourself on. The relationship between fact and fiction will always be blurred in politics. Whether that will continue to be the case with Yellowstone is up to those individuals who are willing to do more than just spout rhetoric and instead find workable solutions. The good news is that the opportunity most winter revelers missed last go-round is presenting itself one last time. But people need to act now.
The first thing they need to do is bookmark or make a favorite of the Blue Ribbon dedicated Yellowstone website, which is www.saveyellowstonepark.com. The Park Service looks for what's called substantive comments. These are comments that are grounded in fact and in science and refer to some of the documentation that is readily available.
The way they're having the park system structured right now, it's a rich man's game. It's $600 to $1,000 depending on your family a day, and people just can't spend it, and they won't spend it, and they won't see it. But I would encourage anybody, and I think at the end of the broadcast you'll be able to jump online and cast your vote on what your opinion should be to access the park. You'll literally have 1 week. Again, we've been fighting this issue for 15 years, and it's come down to this, and unity is the only way we'll persevere.
From the trailhead, I'm Terry Wood.